Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be about my self-love journey or whatever you want to call it, but pretty much starting from the beginning in my early 20s. That was when I first started dating, and I feel like I was kind of obsessed with it because as women we're taught like, oh, you need to find a good husband and then you need to have babies. That's all you're here for. Whereas men are brought up more career focused and then settling down or whatever. So basically, that was all I had on my mind in my early 20s. I was like, you know what, I gotta, go to school, whatever, and then find a man. And then I wasn't even thinking about a job or a career because I've never had a dream job in mind. Like, I was never one of those kids that's like, oh, I'm gonna be a doctor, I'm gonna be a firefighter, like, and know what I want to do for 30, 40 years until I die. Like, I just wasn't like that. I don't dream of working for my whole life. So pretty much I started dating when I was, I'm gonna say like 18, 19. I don't know. It was like out of college because when I was in schools, I went to like white schools growing up, and then like people in high school are just dumb. So I was like, oh, like I'm not gonna waste my time dating in high school because I already know that relationship isn't gonna last because you have those people who are like high school sweethearts and they might get married or whatever, or those other people who date in high school and they might get married, but it's like a small percentage of that. And I just simply wasn't attracted to anybody who went to my school. So I was like, why would I waste time talking to some little high school boys? I could probably wait till I'm in college. But then when I went to college, it was like the same type of thing. I was like, oh, I gotta focus on school. I don't even have time for a relationship or anything, blah blah blah. So I didn't even lose my virginity until like after that with like an older guy or whatever. But after I finished school, I was like, oh, I guess I can start dating now. So I was dating the first guy I'd ever talked to. He was like, I think like a year younger than me. And it was extremely toxic. There was lots of arguments, lots of drama. And it was like we both were just not even ready to date. Like it was both of our first relationships. So we were like, what the hell are we doing? And the second relationship was like kind of okay, but that was like I wasn't really feeling it too much. I wasn't really trying to date when I'm like fresh out of college, and I was like, I'm not really feeling it. So I low-key felt bad because I like led him on in a way because he was more serious than me because he was like 4 years older than me. And I was kind of telling him like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this, whatever. And I kept like going back and forth with the idea of dating or whatever. Turns out we barely had anything in common when we actually did start to have deep conversations and stuff. Like we barely talked all the time. Like the most things that we would do was go to the movies, and obviously movies doesn't involve talking. Okay. So after that, my third relationship was extremely toxic. That was like probably the worst one I've been in, and I still need to do a story time on that because it's going to be super long. But that relationship was super toxic. I thought it was like, my first love, but then I realized like, no, this is not what love is. Love is not somebody manipulating you, talking down on you, calling you bad names, bashing you to their friends, making you look bad in public to everybody else, gossiping about you. That is not what love is. That's not what should be happening in a relationship. And obviously I was in my actually no, not even early 20s. This shit was like 2 years ago. So I was like 20. No, I knew him for like 4 years at this point. So probably from like 22, 21 to like 23, pretty much. I don't know. But I knew him for like longer because we were friends before that. So it was like extremely draining. And then it got to the point where we were kind of on and off, and I didn't know what the hell we were. But of course, he wanted me to be loyal to him, and it was just like a whole thing. And it ended like kind of badly, I guess. Like I had to end up cutting him off. I was like, what the fuck are we doing? We're just going back and forth for all these years. Either we're dating or we're not. I don't know what the hell this is anymore. I'm too old for this. And the arguing every day was driving me crazy, all the constant gaslighting and stuff. And that's how it is when you're dealing with a narcissist, all of the mental abuse. And then he would even laugh in my face and say like, oh, mental abuse isn't a thing, bullying isn't a thing. And I'm like, bro, like did we not learn about bullying in school and how people hurt themselves over all these like negative words and stuff. But anyways, I've gone through basically toxic relationships. I feel like my second one was kind of healthy, like if I was in the right mindset at the time, but I just was just young and wasn't ready. But like overall, I feel like I've never had like a super good relationship. Like how people are always talking about like, oh, me and this guy dated and like we just weren't the right person for each other, but we're still friends. We're still close friends. We still talk, whatever, whatever. Like I've never had that type of relationship. I feel like with any guy who I've talked to, even like if it was just like some little situationship or whatever, most of them would want like me for sexual purposes, or they weren't looking for a serious relationship, or we would like date and then it would be toxic. So I feel like I've never had like a actual healthy relationship. So that pretty much got me to where I am now, because all the stuff that happened to me in 2023 was like extremely bad. So now I'm at the point where I was like, oh, maybe I should just be celibate, focus on myself, get my career together, get an actual job with benefits, because I'm about to be 26 in a couple months, and that's when you get taken off your parents' insurance or whatever. So I was like, yeah, I need a real job. I need to save up for a whole bunch of stuff, bills, loans, whatever, and pay those off, right? So what the hell am I here worrying about a relationship for? Because I feel like after I went through the drama and then I turned 25, I was like, what the hell am I doing in these like bad situationships? So once I turned 25, last year, I had to cut this guy off I was talking to, and I was like, no, I can't mess with you anymore. So this white man was just giving me a headache, so I had to cut him off. Um, uh, but it was a lot. So then now it's like I'm celibate because I'm trying to get money now and actually focus on myself and doing things like by myself, for myself, all of that. So when people ask me and they're like, "Oh, have you like tried dating again? Are you talking to anybody right now?" I'm like, "No." Like you do not know the mental abuse I went through last year with those two narcissists. I'm not even thinking about dating at this point. It's at the point where like it's like I am a hopeless romantic, and sure, a relationship would be nice, obviously, because I'm getting almost 30 or whatever. But realistically, I'm like, dang, like I need to focus on getting this money. So it basically like happened backwards, because when you're in your early 20s, that should be the time where you're career focused. If you're like fresh out of college trying to get in like whatever you want to do, that's when you get your money together. And then obviously like you can move out or whatever, and then that's when I think people should start dating, because people these days, they aren't even having kids until they're 30, And then there's a lot of people in their 30s, they're still living at home. And I never shame people for that, because I grew up poor, whatever. And I feel like it's only America where kids are moving out when they're freshly 18, or like they're pressured to move out, or their parents literally kick them out. But luckily enough, I'm fortunate to have parents who were like, oh, yeah, stay as long as you want. It's like obviously like I help out around the house and stuff like that, but I would never in my life think about like kicking out my kid or making them pay rent or any of that stuff. Um so it's to the point where I'm like, like I'm doing fine now. I'm just saving up, but I have been celibate since the last situationship, because he was like sleeping with me and this other girl at the same time. So I was like, oh, okay. So then after that, I was like, no, maybe I literally just shouldn't date at all. And then obviously, like, it sucks because you want like companionship and you're lonely, or you just want somebody to do stuff with. Because I don't even have a lot of friends like that for real. I have like a tiny group of friends, and those are some people who I met from work. But I'm like, would I really be friends with them if I didn't meet them at work? Like, that's the same thing that happened with my high school friends, because obviously you have a group in high school, but then after we graduated, like, we just all went our separate ways. People moved or got jobs or went to like different areas, stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, and then like we didn't even stay in contact. We kind of just like went our separate ways. So I'm like, oh, is that what's gonna happen with this friend group that I have now? Like some of us are gonna move away, get new jobs, and then we can't see each other, we can't hang out. I don't know. So like friendships for real, I feel like they're mostly like seasonal. It's rare that you get like a lifelong friendship type of thing where you actually invite these people to your wedding. Um so that's like a whole different thing in itself. But dating wise, it's like annoying because I don't even be leaving my house. So I'm like, where am I gonna meet my husband realistically if I don't leave my house? And then at the same time, when I do leave my house, I'm going to like a bar or I'm going out to eat. And I'm like, I'm not really trying to meet my husband at a bar. Like, I can't take those guys seriously. I've had guys approach me, they be whispering in my ear, and I'm like, don't do you be here every weekend? Do you be getting drunk every weekend? Because I be popping out like once a month, if that, right? And I'm just not trying to meet my husband at a club. I'm trying to meet my husband at like a grocery store, like a casual bump into each other, or like a Home Depot, so I know he's like a handy type guy. And then like even with the dating apps, I barely use those anymore. I feel like they're on my phone, but it gets to the point where like I open it up and then I see like a non-attractive guy and I'm like, ugh, like Lord have mercy. And then I close it because I'm like, you really put that on my feed? You think that's what I want? No. And I get annoyed and I close the app. So even the apps be annoying me at this point. And then just like the male presence is just like I feel like now I'm more so craving just like female friendships, and then at the same time I'm also trying to do stuff alone because people don't realize like doing stuff alone is actually fun, because I do like being alone, but like I said, like there's an aspect of being lonely or just wanting to like have a group of people to hang out with. But when I do stuff alone, I feel like, I don't know, like time goes by slower. Like I actually enjoy being by myself. Like it's not the fact that I'm like an introvert. It's more so I'm like, oh, this is an activity I can do for like however long I want. Nobody's gonna come interrupt me. Nobody's gonna be like blowing up my phone or like rushing me to leave or anything like that. I can spend as much time as I want sitting at a restaurant by myself, or going to a bookstore and reading by myself, going to the library or shopping, whatever I want to do by myself. Like nobody is going to interrupt that me time, you know? But if you're with a group of friends, they could be like too much talking and having you there longer than you want, or rushing you out of place to do some different plans. So I've actually been trying to enjoy time by myself and actually like appreciate how I am. And then when it comes to like body positivity too, I'm starting to not like self depreciate, I guess, because I used to speak down on myself all the time. I'm like, oh, like if I got cheated on, I'd be like, oh, why don't I look like her? What was wrong with me? Why did he choose her? Like certain stuff like that. And now I'm at the point where like, oh, if he chose her, like what can I do? Because he clearly wasn't the one for me if he went out there and chose another girl, right? And then even with like how I look, I'm like, oh, just appreciating myself in my natural form. That's why I have been having my natural hair out recently, even though I do have to wake up hella early for work. Is like I just make sure I wake up earlier so I can have my hair done, and I'd be like, yes, like I love my natural self. I've been wearing like less makeup when I go out, all that stuff. So it's like in all different forms of my life, I feel like I'm just trying to like change up how I do things, because realistically, if I'm getting older, you can't stay the same person for years and years and years without change. Like I feel like inevitably there's going to have to be change in some aspect of your life, regardless of like what you're eating, what you're doing, where you're going, people you're hanging around, all of that stuff. So it's like once I started making these changes after I turned 25, I feel like life has kind of been better. And then they always talk about like your life has to get worse before it gets better, blah blah blah. And like, yes, I feel like that's low key kind of true, because I went through hell last year, and it's like stuff that I haven't even told like anybody. Like some people know the tea, but like other stuff I haven't even told anybody. What I went through, like the most unimaginable stuff that I've put up with, people I've dealt with, all that stuff. Um, so I don't know. I be making these videos so I can look back on them in a few years and see if anything actually changed or not. But yeah, just in general, I've been trying to love myself more. But people will always be like, "Oh, you gotta love yourself before somebody else can love you." I don't know. That's low key a myth because I can still like work on myself while I'm dating other people. Like I can still appreciate myself when I'm like with somebody else. But it's like I'm learning to be more independent in general because I just feel like I've kind of been dependent on other people for my happiness for like the longest time. And now I'm like happy by myself after getting rid of certain people and exposing certain things, bringing things to the light and all that. So we shall see what happens after this.